This morning, Denmark's Prime Minister gave a heartfelt shout-out to the people of Greenland, applauding their unshakable spirit as pressure from the Trump administration continues to mount like an Arctic glacier heading downhill. The latest? Washington's eyes are locked on Greenland, again, and apparently the whole world needs the US to own it. Yes, even Denmark needs America to take it over. According to Trump, that is. Meanwhile, Vice President J.D. Vance has landed in Greenland, basically telling everyone that this icy gem can't possibly fend for itself and should just go ahead and call America Dad. And while the official line is all about respecting the sovereignty of Denmark and, by extension, Greenland, there's a not-so-subtle undertone of, but not for long. The administration is playing a bold Arctic card, stressing that America is an Arctic nation too, and flexing recent moves to reinforce sovereignty up north. Translation? They're ramping up efforts to put stars and stripes all over the Arctic. But plot twist, Canada just pulled off a geopolitical heist worthy of a Netflix thriller. While the US was busy rehearsing its ownership speech, Canada swooped in with a $3 billion deal involving rare earth minerals and gold, tying Greenland closer to itself and the EU. Suddenly, Greenland is less America's for the taking and more the world's new mineral-rich best friend. Advantage: Canada. Back in Washington, Trump is still stuck on his icy obsession. Ever since his first failed attempt to buy Greenland in 2019, it's become a bucket list item alongside build that wall and solve world peace. In March 2025, he literally stood before Congress and said, "We will annex Greenland to the United States one way or another." Global diplomats nearly choked on their coffee. And just to show he means business, Trump's team is dusting off Cold War documents like the Eisenhower-era Arctic Gap Plan and an old Thule radar blueprint, because nothing says 2025 like 1980s paperwork. The message? The US isn't just talking about renting Greenland, it's talking about full-on ownership. Military and money are driving the logic here. The Pentagon says Greenland's northern coast creates radar blind spots, giving Russian submarines a sneaky advantage. But analysts aren't buying it, literally. They're convinced it's not about defense, it's about the $38 billion in rare earth metals, 17 billion barrels of Arctic oil, and a treasure trove of elements like zirconium and niobium hiding beneath Greenland's icy crust. Missouri Senator Josh Hawley jumped into the ring, waving the China threat flag. "If we don't mine it, Beijing will," he warned, trying to stir up Senate support for a US-driven mineral mission. But Denmark and Greenland weren't having it. Their response to Trump's annexation talk? A diplomatic version of, "Not today, Donald." When Donald Trump opened his mouth again about buying Greenland, a collective eye roll swept across the North Atlantic. What a bizarre thing to say, was the general vibe. You can't just slap a price tag on a country like it's real estate on a monopoly board, many Greenlanders and Danes thought. And they made that loud and clear. "We're not for sale," Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen stated bluntly. "Greenland belongs to the Greenlanders." Simple, unapologetic. And on March 12, 2025, both Nuuk's coalition government and Copenhagen backed that sentiment in a joint statement that was anything but subtle. They slammed the door on any talk of handing over Greenland's sovereignty and warned that strong-arming the island would erode trust within NATO itself, a diplomatic mic drop, if you will. Now, while the US was busy dreaming of flags flying over glaciers, Greenland was looking east, to Europe. The EU's 2023 Critical Raw Materials Act opened the door for responsible, alliance-based resource extraction. For Greenland, it was an opportunity to develop sustainably without bowing to American pressure. But there was one catch: it needed serious funding. Enter Canada. In a move that left Washington fuming and flustered, two Canadian companies swooped in to get the ball rolling. Greenland Resources Inc., previously a small Ontario outfit, pivoted hard, seeing Europe's growing demand for molybdenum, an essential metal for high-strength steel, as a golden ticket. Backed by the European Investment Bank's Green Fund and Denmark's export credit agency AFO, they secured a game-changing letter of intent in late 2024. By spring 2025, Greenland's cabinet granted them a 30-year mining license. The ore was heading to Europe, and the US was left on the sidelines. Meanwhile, Amarok Minerals, a multi-metal player with listings in Toronto, Reykjavik, and London, gave new life to the Nalunaq gold project. Once abandoned due to Arctic extremes, the site got a fresh injection of cash, £45 million to be exact, pulled together from Denmark, Norway's pension fund, and private equity from the UK and, ironically, the US. That's right, American money unknowingly helped finance Canada's big Arctic win. The irony was so thick, you could bottle it and sell it in gift shops. Greenland, though, wasn't just taking handouts. They made the rules. A new infrastructure law passed in July 2025 ensured that 70% of the mining workforce would be local and 10% of profits would go into a sovereign wealth fund, Nuuk's Future Fund, built to secure long-term stability. Canadian companies happily accepted the terms, US firms still dragging their feet. But Canada didn't stop at mining. With support from the European Development Bank and Norway's Sovereign Wealth Fund, they rolled out a $3.1 billion Arctic Green Transition Fund aimed at building roads, ports, and energy systems without a single dollar from the US. This fund anchored Greenland within a web of allied cooperation and made Trump's annexation talk look like a bad episode of The Apprentice Arctic Edition.
Meanwhile, NATO was split. Norway stood firm behind Denmark. Poland zipped its lips to keep military ties with Trump intact. And Canada issued stern diplomatic warnings about trying to use force for resource grabs. France just turned up the Arctic thermostat. It sent the nuclear sub Suffren slicing through Baffin Bay, while European development banks began laying groundwork for an airport in Greenland. That's not tourism, it's strategy. And Europe is clearly in it for the long haul. Meanwhile, a major Canada-EU mineral pact has completely thrown a wrench into America's supply chains, especially when it comes to molybdenum. Not exactly a household name, but this metal is the secret sauce behind high-strength steel in EVs, nuclear tech, and yes, hypersonic missiles. The U.S. Inflation Reduction Act? It forgot Greenland existed. Now molybdenum has jumped from nice to have to uh-oh on Washington's risk radar. Big U.S. defense contractors like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon are feeling the pinch. Lockheed delayed hypersonic weapons testing. Raytheon is now awkwardly looking to Australia and Chile for substitutes. Congress is getting twitchy. Senators from Maine and Vermont floated a friendlier idea. Why not just cooperate with Greenland instead of trying to buy it? Too little, too late. A U.S.-led economic plan that tied development aid to access for naval bases was flat out rejected. Washington's standing in Greenland is now closer to frostbite than firm footing. Meanwhile, Canada is playing 3D chess. Its grand Arctic vision, what the Toronto press has cheekily dubbed the Arctic Hexagon, connects mining operations in Baffin Island to mineral hubs in Greenland, and even includes Canadian Space Agency projects. It's smart, it's futuristic, and it completely outmaneuvers the US. Now, Canada's nervous about Washington saber-rattling. If Trump keeps shouting about annexation, Canada fears it might ignite a tug-of-war over the Northwest Passage. And guess who's always eager to jump into cold geopolitical waters? China. Canada's not just mining, it's leveraging. Ontario slapped the ban on battery mineral exports, giving Canada stronger control in a clean energy world. Cedar Energy, a Canadian company, is in talks to set up a floating LNG plant off Disco Bay, aiming to ship Arctic gas directly to Europe. Germany is very interested. The US? Not so much, since Trump's permit drama has made American LNG exports a gamble. Meanwhile, Greenland is quietly rewriting its own future. That gold mine at Nalunaq? It's not just gold, it's a jackpot of copper and silver, perfect for clean energy alloys. The EU is smiling. Greenland's getting paid. Washington is being left out in the cold. Under new mining laws, 70% of workers must be local, and 10% of profits go into Greenland's Future Fund, a piggy bank for independence. Canada's company said, cool, we're in. US firms? Not so eager. And while some in the Pentagon flirt with the idea of light military exercises like C-130s landing at Thule, Copenhagen and Nuuk want none of it. They know every drop of American overreach only fuels Greenlandic independence, something both fear and celebrate. Trump's Arctic fantasy? has totally backfired. Instead of raising Old Glory over Greenland, he's pushed it into the arms of Ottawa and Brussels. Now it's not a for sale sign hanging on Greenland, it's a grand opening banner for a new era of Arctic development owned and directed by middle powers and multinational alliances. The US finds itself on the sidelines, watching as Canada turns the Arctic into a strategic playground, one that mixes clean energy, critical minerals, and indigenous partnerships with some serious geopolitical finesse. Greenland isn't some icy outpost anymore. It's the treasure chest of the 21st century. And Canada just found the key. Because in today's Arctic, the ice may be melting, but the stakes are only getting colder.